Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Another iteration of the Ohio train derailment in East Palestine that has caused such an uproar. Now, I do have to give it to every single one of you, every single person out there in YouTube, Rumble, everywhere that you guys can really get any real information on anything, especially TikTok. This is where the information has come out because without you guys, this would have gone largely unnoticed and nobody would have known anything about this. So, props to every single one of you that have been covering this, that have been saying anything about this at all, whether it's been good information or just roundabout information. At least there has been some information to cover this in any way, shape, or form. Let's do a little bit of recap on this. Oh, before we do that, we got a little guest with us today. We have Crash Mondo with us. Crash, how you doing, man?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good myself. Can't really complain. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm an engineer by trade, and I like to talk crap on the internet. So catch me on Flagrant Triggers channel every Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern on the draw.
What kind of engineer?
Electrical. So I've started off in power systems, but now I work more in automation.
Oh, so you're the guy I hate when I have to pull network and security cables.
Yeah, that's me.
But yeah, all right. While we're doing this, let's give a little recap about everything that's been happening so far. What was it? February 3rd, train derailed, and nothing was largely done for a few days about this. Then they had they understood that there were hazardous chemicals on this train, and they started going over there to inspect the train after it had derailed and noticed that some of these hazardous chemicals could cause an explosion hazard and was already to a point, almost to a point of an
We now
explosion
have a clearer
happening.
picture of the moments leading up to the East Palestine train derailment. And
Why are you starting something? That kind of freaked me out. I was like, who else is here?
Got
But no,
hacked.
yeah, it was starting to build up pressure in some of these containers, especially, the 5 that were carrying the vinyl chloride. Now, vinyl chloride does boil. We'll go over the safety data sheets on this to corroborate what I'm saying with all this, but vinyl chloride does boil away at 7.9 degrees, which means it starts to boil and vaporize. Now, I don't know if you guys have pressure cookers at home, but you start to boil the water. When the water becomes a steam, it builds up pressure, and that's part of how pressure cookers help to cook your food and things like that. Without any kind of regulation on the pressure, an explosion can and will occur. Like old style pressure cookers, you had that top that would just rock and you'd hear that whistle that happens with them. If that weren't there, if you were to touch the pot in any way, it could explode, sending the lid violently up through your ceiling and boiling water everywhere. Same kind of situation with this, except you're talking hundreds of thousands of gallons of this vinyl chloride causing an explosion that would release a whole bunch of vaporized vinyl chloride combining with the atmosphere, the water vapor in the atmosphere to create hydrogen, what is it, hydrogen chloride or hydrochloric acid. 115,000 gallons or so vaporizing to a point, being released in one area like that would have created one hell of a catastrophe that every single person, not only in the North America, but probably some of South America would have felt as well. So, I have been telling people this, that the burning by the standards of, the control and the hazmat response that you would get for this, burning these chemicals is the best thing to do in a controlled situation because it reduces the amount of hydrogen chloride that would be created in the atmosphere. However, this went on for days. It was an incomplete burn because there was nobody around to keep the tankers cool. That's why the black smoke was pluming up into the air, and that's why we saw those footages that we did, pictures and everything. That's what we were getting from that. Now, fast forward, what was it? 2 weeks later, Biden was saying he wasn't going to give them any kind of relief. He wasn't going to do anything for these people. Um, then Trump announced that he was going to go to East Palestine, and then wow, all of a sudden EPA shows up. Pete Buttigieg is supposed well, he does go down there. Um, Biden still has yet to respond. As a matter of fact, he decided, fuck East Palestine. We're going to go over to Ukraine, giving them another $500 million. So at this point in time, let's see, when does this? February 23rd, I got a little report that Norfolk Southern had released their preliminary report about what had happened here, and we're gonna go into this. But before we do, Crash, you got anything you want to add to any of that, man?
No, I guess my one question I had is not that you'd be able to answer it, but why did they not cool? It's clearly in the MSDS, right, that they need to keep those tankers cool as far as when they're trying to contain it. And I would have thought that the fire department, the first thing they would be looking for when they find out what they're dealing with is an MSDS to figure out how do we fight this thing. And is it just I don't know, like did they not read it and just did their own kind of way? I'm just trying to figure out how that part got missed, because that seems to be where the whole thing got botched was just not cool. Yeah, the lack of cooling on the tankers.
I don't know completely 100%, but I'm gonna go ahead and spitball it and think that they don't have a hazmat response team. And the only reason that I have any hazmat training in any way is I worked at Sanford. I made the ink that goes in your pens, your highlighters, your Sharpies, things like that. Even the ink that goes on your newspapers. Okay. So because I messed with these dangerous chemicals all day, every day, I had to be trained. I had to know about this. And if anything were to happen, because we know about these chemicals, we were the first responders for our plant. We were the ones that were going there to control the situation. If we needed to escalate any further, to take it out of our hands, call our fire department, who had to be trained in this situation as well, things like that. Um, I'm thinking I don't know much about East Palestine, what's actually there. I'm thinking that they don't have anybody available that knows these kinds of things because they don't deal with these kinds of things. Apparently, it passes through their town, but it doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that was the reason behind all that, and why nobody knew what to do, because nobody had come across anything like this in their area. Now, once it was escalated to a point where other people had gotten involved, that would be a question that needs to be answered, is why the hell didn't they? You know,
Mm-hmm.
because all right, you could have stopped the cloud, the plume of smoke would have already happened at that point in time, but you could have at least brought it under control to where it did not release so much, you know. So why didn't the escalated team do anything about it? Was it already too hot in the area to get even anywhere close to it? I don't know, you know. So it's one of those things that is a damn good question that needs to be answered. But yeah, like you said, I can't answer it. But yeah,
Yeah, we'll see if the NTSB finds out anything and reports it. Not holding my breath that they'll give us an honest report, but
I'm not either.
Yeah.
I'm really not either. I mean, they try to hide this whole thing and blame it on the workers and everything. uh, and there is a point to be made. Trump did roll back a lot of safety measures and everything like that. Yes, that did actually happen, but I'm still going to blame Biden for this, because y'all remember the infrastructure bill? What happened there? We had almost $1 billion in that infrastructure bill that was supposed to go for our infrastructure. Yet, what is it? 173 million of that was spent to bring electricity to Indian reserves that already had electricity. That doesn't make sense now, does it? So, yeah, things like that. I'm definitely going to blame Biden for this kind of shit because you talk about the infrastructure, all of that went to green energy and things like that, and helping people out that already had what they were trying to be helped for. It's just a way to squander money, kind of like the whole Ukraine debacle. So this is on Biden too. But yeah, this one comes from it was updated February 23rd, 2023. This comes from WKYC Studios. NTSB releases preliminary report on East Palestine train derailment, blames wheel bearing failure for crash. Well, we've known that for a minute, but Friday was the 23rd, the 24th. Friday marks 3 weeks since the Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine, which has generated national headlines and high profile visitors. Only after we raised such a fuss about that, you should have added that, WKYC. The National Transportation Safety Board releases its preliminary report Thursday amid the ongoing investigation into the train derailment that happened in East Palestine nearly 3 weeks ago on February 3rd. NTSB officials also hosted a news conference in connection with its preliminary report to discuss factual information from the investigation in rail safety. NTSB Chair Jennifer Hamidi. I'm just going to mess that
I
name
have
up.
no idea. I have no idea.
I'm just going to call her
Not even gonna
Jennifer.
try.
And Robert J. Hall, directors of the NTSB Office of Railroad, Pipeline, and Hazardous Materials, both spoke at the press briefing. This was 100% preventable, Jennifer told reporters. We call things accidents. There is no accident. Every single event that we investigate is preventable. And that's 100% true. And you'll see why here in a minute. We were kind of talking about this before we went live. According to the report, 149 rail cars, the 149 car train crash because of a failed wheel bearing on the 23rd rail car. Records show that the bearing had been overheating for about 30 miles before the wreck, but the crew was not alerted to stop the train until a tracker detecting the piece of equipment at more than 250 degrees Fahrenheit above normal temperature. I have an issue with this, and I'll explain it here in a sec, but per Norfolk Southern Railway policies, engineers must stop and inspect trains when bearings reach a temperature of at least 170 degrees above normal, or when it's at least 115 degrees hotter than the other bearings on the same axle. At greater than 200, the car must be removed from service. The railroad has trackside hot bearing detectors located roughly 10 to 20 miles apart from one another, with the first about 30 miles northwest of East Palestine, showing the bearing at 48 degrees above normal temperature. At this point, in best circumstances, you're already seeing a spike of 48 degrees. Okay. Nothing really to be concerned about, something to pay attention to, though. That number includes an addition of the 10 degrees of outside air. 10 miles later, the wheel's heat rose to 113 degrees above ambient, but this was still below the threshold required to stop the train. And this is what I was saying behind the scenes. All right. At the first one, it was 48 degrees above normal temperature. And then the next one, it was 113 degrees above normal temperature. You already had a flag at the very beginning of this as to there could be a problem. Let's keep an eye on it. Second one comes along. There is such a huge degree difference. You're talking, what, 50, 60, almost 60 degrees, 60, almost 70 degrees. So why didn't you already try to stop at that point in time? There is a 70-degree difference between these points. Why did you not try to stop?
I have to wonder what their SCADA system is like. The system I'm imagining that somebody's sitting in front of some sort of computer monitor, and that's where these alerts come in. And depending on what shows up on the screen when the sensor goes off, that would tell you whether it's the operator that kind of missed it or whether the programmer, during when they were supposed to do alarm rationalization, perhaps maybe the alert didn't show up because it was only at 113 degrees above the others. And so if the operator doesn't see that, then you can't blame him for that. But perhaps during the design phase, when they're actually building this out and programming it out, perhaps that threshold just wasn't proper.
Yeah, but I mean, still, I understand the fact that they have to watch a whole bunch of things, but I'm pretty sure within their system, they're logging this anyway. If there is such a difference in degrees as far as they're going along, why was this not flagged, or why was this not at least noticed to a point to where, okay, 48 degrees above this one, 113 degrees above this one, there has to be a problem. We need to stop this before it becomes catastrophic. Because finally at milepost 49, the bearing was flagged at 263 degrees above an acceptable temperature. The acceptable temperature was what, 118? Or 115 was it? Where was that?
No, well, yeah, 115 above the other bearing temperatures. Yeah. So that's a bit
hotter than other bearings.
Yeah.
But it spikes to 263 degrees, and you were already at that threshold of 113. But nobody even thought there's got to be a problem here. Let's go ahead and stop right now. Until 10 miles later, we're seeing 263 degrees.
Well, that's why I'm wondering what their screen looks like and what is actually shown on there. I mean, it's a matter of if the information shows clearly, then the operator is definitely at fault there for, some things are just obvious. But if I don't know, I mean, like I said, I don't have any idea what kind of system they use, how much automation they incorporate. Obviously, it doesn't seem like there's much. It seems like there's a lot of like just manual operation, and I guess that doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah, Good Night Mister actually has a good thought there. He says, I'm curious if the train engineers knew about the issue and tried to say something, but they were shot down. Sort of like how the Challenger explosion engineers tried to desperately tell upper management.
So,
well, if that's the case, then it has to be on the upper management within Norfolk Southern.
I'm going to push back on that just a little bit, just because of the kind of situation we have here, that the train engineers have the ability to stop that train physically. And quite honestly, if you're in that position and you see a problem and you don't have the guts to just kind of say, I'm going to ask for forgiveness rather than beg for permission, I'm not going to give any grace on that. If the stop button's at your helm, you're the one responsible, and that's the way it should be treated. Like the Challenger explosion, I've studied that one because they make you study it in engineering school. It's like the first case study that you do, and they had one data point. So I can kind of understand why management wasn't willing to stop on that, because they put a memo out. They didn't really have any sense of urgency in that memo, and they had they just showed a single data point where it's like, oh, we had failure at this temperature for this one O-ring, and like that chart only had like 4 data points on it, and all the rest of them were fine. So it's like, okay, maybe that's enough to cause pause, but like if you don't have any sense of urgency, nobody's going to take you seriously with this little 1-page memo. You don't even know if it's getting to the right people if you're just issuing a memo. Like, you got to get up out of your seat, go talk to the right people who you know who are in charge and can actually make a good call. We got to stop.
I'm going to be honest,
but
if it were me in that kind of situation, I'd have just said, "Fuck it. What? I'm gonna take a ride up. So what? If nothing, if everything is okay, so what? This stuff's gonna be delayed a little bit. But if everything's not okay, I may stop a big crash and lots of people die. Now, of course, these people don't know what's on this train, but worst comes to worst, train wrecks happen. It could barrel through a town and derail in the middle of a town, destroying a whole bunch of things, killing a whole bunch of people. So I would stop that. I don't care. Write me up if there's not an issue with it. But if I saw that, I'd just be like, we're done. This has got to stop.
Yeah, to me, it's a work culture issue when your operators don't feel like they can make judgment calls like that.
Right. All right. Let's see. Above acceptable temperature, sending an alarm to the crew inside the lead locomotive. The NTSB says the engineer did indeed apply the brakes, but to no avail as the axle broke and 38 of the cars derailed. Once the train came to a stop, the crew alerted authorities of a possible derailment and fire before moving the engine away from the scene. Okay, so once they noticed 260 degrees above the acceptable temperature, the crew inside the locomotive, which was what, an engineer, a trainee, and a conductor, I think was the report about that. So there
I
was
don't
only three
recall.
people on this train or something like that.
All I remember was that it was less than what one would expect per, I guess, industry standard. I remember reading about it, but I can't remember the specifics.
Well, I mean, yeah, that also goes back to, you remember the strike that our railroad unions were going to go on if they
Hmm.
weren't going to get any help from Biden. And Biden said, all right, let's come to the table," and then said, "No, go fuck yourself." So yeah, it's still on Biden at this point to me. Trump may have exacerbated the issue at the very beginning, but Biden's the one that fucked the pooch on this one.
I mean, so one of the things I learned shortly after starting to investigate this was that we have tons of derailments every year.
Over
Tons.
1,200.
I heard 1,700 on average.
Well, where
I
I'm
mean,
getting it was over 1,200 a year, but
I
1,700
mean,
on
it's still a
average.
lot either way. That's still a ton. It's you're
Yeah,
talking 4 or 5 per day. I'm like, is
that's a
that
huge.
considered acceptable?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Like, apparently, companies like Norfolk Southern and Burlington North Santa Fe, somebody I can't Union Pacific, all these other. I mean, I don't. I would wonder. I wonder how each of them fall against the average. And then I'm also wondering, like, I'm wondering if there are some culprits that are more guilty than others. If they're the ones that are causing a lot of it, um,
Well,
or
to
is
be
it
considered,
pretty industry wide? Like, are all of these companies contributing pretty equally to this issue of like, hey, we're just wrecking all of our trains?
a derailment, this was a huge derailment. To be considered a derailment, it's one axle comes off the track. In one of the cars, one axle comes off the track. That's a derailment. So I can understand how there would be a large amount of derailments that happens. Maybe some stupid ass. I'm guilty of it. I've lived near train tracks. I put things on the track to let a train flatten it out, pennies,
Hmm.
rocks, things like that. So if one axle were to come off, that's a derailment. Not really a big issue, but the fact that they consider this a derailment and not a crash or an accident, or what, classify it anything other than a derailment, is astonishing to me. Kind of like the one in, I think it was, what was that, North Carolina? It was either North or South Carolina
Or
and Texas. Both
South
of them
Carolina
had
and then
toxic.
Houston, Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, both of them had toxic chemicals on them. Um, things like that. There was that one tractor trailer truck that was overturned that spilled nitric acid. It was just a few barrels of that. That wasn't that big of an issue as far as that goes, but kind of makes you feel like there is something going on. And it's not just normal everyday occurrences. Maybe it is because we are hyper focused at that point. We've been seeing a lot more of these things, and we're trying to put them together without knowing that these kinds of things do happen on a regular basis, which is still alarming in of itself. But yeah. But Jennifer declares that we have no evidence that the crew did anything wrong. We will come back to the preliminary report here in a minute. 11 of the cars were carrying hazardous materials, including 5 each with more than 115,000 gallons of vinyl chloride. Now, whenever the SDS of this as well, it is the worst of the chemicals that were out there, and what has caused such a response for this to happen. However, I do not think that is what is in the water supply. Again, we'll go back over that a little bit later, and I'll explain to you guys why. Um, but yeah, let's see. After residents within a 1 mile radius were evacuated, which is standard procedure for this, it should have been a lot further knowing what was going on, but within the 1 mile radius, that is standard procedure.
Is there a
Both
standard for
north.
how fast that should happen?
Mm, as fast as it did happen compared to, from what Kat was saying, the derailment happened. They
Hmm.
noticed they had that hazardous materials that night. I'm gonna say that was a little bit faster than what standard should be, because usually it's within a 24-hour period, but they did that within hours.
Yeah, it was a couple hours.
So
I was just curious if you thought it was if you thought that was a good response time when getting the evacuation or a slow response time. I wasn't not sure what the expectation would
from
be there.
from what she was saying, it's usually within a 24-hour period that is a normal response time kind of situation. From what she did, I'd say that was excellent response time. They were telling people get the hell out within a matter of hours. So yes, I would say that was excellent response time. When I worked for Sanford when I was younger. I had the lead first responder for our hazmat crew on second shift. So when we got that call, our response time, if we were late by any less or any more than 20 minutes, we got our asses chewed out. But then again, we were only hundreds of feet away from anything. So if it took us more than 20 minutes to get suited up and report to the scene, we were fucking off. And it was
Mhm.
completely evident. But for them, for a mere matter of hours to evacuate, I don't even know how many people it was. Wasn't it a couple? Wasn't it over 1,000 in that 1 mile radius or something like that? Or maybe
Probably. I
a
mean,
close to 1,000?
the town itself has about 4,500 residents. I don't know how big the. I
What
don't
is
remember what
the
Kat said yesterday.
criteria for declaring federal disaster area in terms of derailments? Things like this. I don't know exactly the federal criteria for it. As far
Apparently,
as a
they
disaster,
apparently
it's going to have to be a huge economical disruption for it to be a federal disaster instead of a local or state, county kind of thing like that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what FEMA said. What I've heard is that their response is that they're not uh, going to engage in this derailment because it's because of the lack of property damage.
Well, the lack of property damage immediately. Now, the amount of hydrogen chloride that's in the atmosphere in that area that we have seen with the videos, the paint being removed on cars, the
Hmm.
the coating of that brown substance, which is oxidization in certain areas, things like there is going to be damage, but you're not going to see it immediately. I mean, the area is pretty much fucked. There's going to be nobody that's going to buy the houses in that area. You
No,
know,
definitely not.
you're going to
I'm
have to
expecting that
demolish the whole thing and start again.
yeah, that town's just gonna eventually it'll just kind of become a ghost town, or unless somebody decides to actually clean it up and start over.
Mr. What's that? Mr. Mark Plot said about 1,200 to 1,700 in population within that 1 mile radius, though. I think in the whole town, there was like what 5,000 people or something. So
4,700.
4,700. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
that would sound right for about that 1 mile radius because East Palestine isn't that big of a city or isn't that big of a town. It can't even be considered a city with less than 5,000 people. But yeah, 10 miles. Okay. Yeah, within that 1 mile area, though, for them to respond so fast to that, they already knew something was up. For them to evacuate so fast within that 1 mile area, they knew something was going on. They knew something was there. They knew this was going to be an issue. But like I said, for them to respond that quickly, that was a kudos moment for them. And that was really the only thing that I could say they did an excellent job on. But here's where it gets really, really into the whole thing. After the 1 mile radius were evacuated, both Norfolk Southern and Ohio Governor Mike DeWine decided the best option at that point was to conduct a controlled release of the chemicals rather than risk a potentially more dangerous explosion. And again, this is what I was saying from the very start. I've been fighting with people a lot about this. They were talking about, oh, well, why did they set it on fire? It was a bad situation. Here's why. The temperature inside one of the tank cars was increasing, which could result in a catastrophic explosion. The critical point is 180 degrees. At the time, one of the cars was reading 140 degrees. Vinyl chloride starts to vaporize at 7.9 degrees Fahrenheit, which
What's the
means
100? I wonder what the 180. What's the 180 degrees critical point? Is that like an auto ignite point?
no, for as a matter of fact, where is it? I think it's this one. Yeah, this is the vinyl chloride. Um
I know its flash point's like 40 something.
Boiling point is
No,
7.9 degrees. Critical temperature is
or
317.2. Flash point is
oh,
negative
it's actually.
108.
I must have been reading a different. That must have been a
But
different MSDS.
from the buildup of the vapor from the point of where the pressure becomes too much and contained situation, anything above 180 degrees probably would have caused that car to explode,
Like
causing
that's just
everything
like from
else
a
to heat
pressure
up rapidly.
standpoint because it's a basically a pressurized vessel.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like popping the lid on a pressure cooker without it being released of the pressure. That thing's going to explode. It's going to hurt and kill anything around it. So, yeah, but the critical temperature is 317.2, which is I think that's auto ignition or auto ignition
Oh,
temperature. No, that's
472
881.
or Celsius. Okay. It's a lot higher than
Auto
I thought it would
ignition is
be.
literally setting itself on fire, but critical
Yeah.
temperature is, yeah, it's going to go up in flames with just sunlight kind of situation. But vapor density is 2.2, air being at an equal of 1. This is twice as dense as air, meaning, of course, it's going to fall down, but in a contained area, it's going to displace twice the area as regular air would. So yeah, the pressure was building up incredibly fast in this situation. So that was the reason why they decided to do a controlled release. And let's go back to it. All the way at the very top of this. It took me a second to find that again. Read and follow before equipment compatible materials. Get medical attention. Where was this? That was the hazardous. Promptly isolate the scene by removing all persons from the vicinity if of the incident if there is a fire. No action shall be taken by any personal risk without suitable training. Contact supplier immediately for specialist advice. Move containers from the fire area if this can be done without risk. Of course, tanker cars we can't really do that with. Use water spray to keep fire exposed containers cool. If fire is if involved in fire, shut off flow immediately if it can be done without risk. If this is impossible, withdraw from the area and allow fire to burn. The fact that they did not try to keep the tanker cars cool in any way to exacerbate the problem, which is exactly what happened, that's where the incomplete burn happened. That was the failure of that, and that's why it got out of control incredibly quickly because the other tanker cars were starting to heat up, causing the same problem. I'm pretty sure the cooling system on these cars to keep the vinyl chloride at a regulated temperature was already damaged. If not, this fire damn sure destroyed it. So causing the other 5 barrels to heat up even more, causing the other 4 tankers to heat up even more, causing the same issue. Where were we? Other liquid chemicals spilled out into the local waterways, and this is what I was saying in the other live that where I went through. There was on Rumble only at that point because I had a week suspension on YouTube. But bring this over here so you guys can see it. It was this live I did right here. I doubt this is vinyl chloride. Here's why. Actually, that got 333 views. Wow. But yeah, in that one right there, I went over all this information and I found out, the vinyl chloride does boil away at that point. There is 115,000 gallons, yes, but the amount that was released before the burn, I don't think that was enough to actually get into the water supply, much less the ground when it boils away at 7.9 degrees. Even the temperature that day, I think it was like 10 degrees, close to that around there. It would already start to boil even at that low of a temperature for humans. So, other liquid chemicals spilled out into the local waterways, killing more than 38,000 fish. The board has not yet determined what caused the bearing to fail, with that Jennifer woman saying it could be anything from metal fatigue to loose bearings or wheel defects. With that amount of heat going on in that, I'm going to probably say a combination of a lot of things, but that was metal rubbing on metal, which means one or more of the ball bearings in that axle had to have seized up. And it was just grinding as it went along. Metal fatigue probably happened at the point, when it was starting to heat up and became more malleable. Loose bearings, I think one of them seized up. It's absolutely critical for problems to be identified and addressed early so that these aren't run into failure. That Jennifer woman said of wheel bearings. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, by the way, booty butt cheeks here. This motherfucker wasn't even going to do anything about this. He didn't say shit until Trump said he's going. He never said anything. He wasn't even going to go. This is our Secretary of Transportation. And yes, he is one of those diversity hires, checking all the boxes and everything. So, yeah. This is the dude that is in charge of this shit. Oh, you want me to bring that up?
Yeah. Get yourselves a t-shirt, people.
We'll get to that here in a second.
All profits go. Well, yeah. We'll when he brings it up, we'll talk about it. But yeah.
But yeah, this is the dude that's over our transportation. And as a matter of fact, I will go ahead and link that as well when we get to that. But this is the dude that's over our transportation. All right, this is the dude that's over this shit, and he wasn't even going to show to this accident. That says a lot. This dude spent almost half a year on maternity leave because they bought kids. Him and his husband bought kids. And then he comes back and just decides he's just going to have a dereliction of duty and not do shit about this issue. This is what happens when you get this woke diversity hire shit. We got Karine Jean-Pierre, who's, Jen Psaki was famous for saying we'll circle back to that. Karine Jean-Pierre is saying I'm not even going to say shit about it. From an administration who says they're going to be transparent, who ran on that platform and still touts themselves as the most transparent administration to date. This is what you get. This is what you get. You voted for Joe Biden because you were told to hate Trump. Now, Trump is an asshole. I hate the asshole too. He's always going to be that. He's a narcissistic piece of shit, but he was the better fucking choice. And we're all seeing it now. We told y'all beforehand. Nobody wanted to listen. Anyway, rant over. By the way, let's go ahead and hit this up. Yeah, tell us a little bit about this while I bring it up, Crash.
All right. So for any fans of Anchorman, you'll recognize where this comes from, but this is pretty much how residents of East Palestine feel about Pete Buttigieg. So all profits for from this shirt will go to helping the residents of East Palestine. So if you want to show off your illustrious was it Secretary of Transportation?
Yep.
And also help out the residents because he won't help them. Buy yourself a T-shirt. Comes in several different color options, and all of these shirts are comfortable. I buy from this guy often, so.
Actually going to pin that message. This will actually be pinned in the other ones. Go ahead and hit that. Rumble as well. Yeah, I'm actually going to grab one myself. After we're done here, I'm going to go ahead and order one. But yeah, you got white, black, gray, green. I want to get me a green one, but I fear it will interrupt with my greens. That might be awesome.
Yeah, that
to just sit here as a head and arms in a stream. Of course, you got your navy. I was actually, when I was doing game streaming, I was going to get one of those little green suit things like Green Man from It's Always Sunny in Philly.
Mhm.
And do a stream to where all you see is just a mic and headphones floating around in the air. But yeah, they pulled that shit from the market, and the only way I can find it now is Amazon for like 60, 70 bucks, and go fuck that. That's too much for a gag, you know?
Yeah.
You got your ice blue, your pinks, your yellows, and your dune. Comes in extra small, medium, large, extra large, 2XL, 3XL. For all the fat bodies out there, you need your 3XLs. We got you hooked up. All right. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm fat too. I can't really say that. I'm 5'7", creeping back up to close to 180 again. So yeah. Where were we?
Let's see. Different chemicals killed 38,000 fish.
Oh yeah. Here we go. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg addressed the NTSB investigation during his visit to East Palestine on Thursday. Mind you, after Trump said, I'm going to go down there next week. And then they said, oh, fuck, now we got to go. Their final work on this will take a while to come out, but having these factual findings is an important step towards being able to move on to the phase of policymaking. I'm not okay with him making policy. I'm not okay with any of this administration making policy. Let's just go ahead and give that. I mean, the Secretary of Health. Look at that man. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? Rachel Levine.
Lord.
Yeah, that's a thing. But yeah. He said during a late morning press conference, while we will, of course, wait for their analysis and recommendations at the end of full process to make certain judgments, we will not wait for the process to run its course to continue doing everything that we can to raise the bar on rail safety and to hold people accountable. Months ago, you had that opportunity, and Biden told them to go fuck themselves. Let's not get that twisted. Months ago, that was an opportunity, and Biden told them to go fuck themselves. I can't even stress that enough. And when that happened, I'm not even totally 100% sure why the rail unions didn't strike immediately afterwards. Anyway, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
yes,
curious.
it would have put a big hindrance on us, you know, with the supply chain and everything already strained as it was, but it would have brought more attention to the situation. Nobody knew that was happening except for the people that was trying to call this shit out, you know, independent media. The mainstream media said very little about it. Even afterwards, they didn't say shit afterwards. It was the independent media. It was people like us. It was people like Quartering. It was people like Tim Pool. Fuck, Hassan Piker talked about it too.
Huh.
Which was surprising as hell to hear Hassan say, I think that motherfucker's starting to get red pilled. I swear to God, he's playing a character.
Honestly, I think
his
his whole socialist arc is just a grift anyway. I don't think he was ever really believed it.
Dude, he was
I think it was always just a grift.
What was that? He was like a Hasabi bro or something like that before he started doing his little grift.
He was the professor.
Professor, that's it. Yeah.
The professor.
He was Jack Murphy before Jack Murphy was a thing.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, he's totally 100% playing a character. And I think he's starting to see the red pill situation that's going on because he's starting to call out things and being like, look, this is kind of fucked. Which is surprising as shit.
Yeah.
Let's see. The full.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Tonight, the latest developments.
Why?
Tonight we have the latest.
Why is this a thing? Why do you do this? You damn such. All right, whatever. The full NTSB investigation is expected to take more than a year. In a statement released Thursday night, Norfolk Southern pledged to cooperate with the inquiry, while also claiming its temperature thresholds for overheating and inspecting are among the lowest on the rail industry. Bullshit. Bullshit. I guarantee you this was recorded. Somebody was like, we may have an issue, and they said, let it fucking ride. It's below the threshold. Let it ride. I guarantee you that's what happened. But of course, they investigate themselves and they find that there is no foul play.
Yep.
Let's see. We in the rail industry need to learn as much as we can from this event. The company added Norfolk Southern would develop practices and invest in technologies that could help prevent an incident like this in the future. Maybe have more of those hot boxes closer together than 10 to 20 miles? Maybe. I mean, that's a good start because most of the big railways have them 5 to 8 miles apart.
Or just put a larger safety factor in your alerts.
Or run more trains.
Freaking like 10 or yeah.
What was this? 150 fucking cars? That's a huge ass train.
Yeah.
I got trains that run through my area. Not even like clockwork. I wish there was a train schedule to the shit because it catches me every damn morning going to work. But
or maybe you do run 150 trains, but maybe don't put the 11 dangerous cars all next to each other.
Yeah.
Like space, they had more than enough room to space these out to keep so that they didn't spill. Like they didn't just spill the vinyl chloride; they spilled everything. There were even like petroleum tankers that burnt up. Like they.
Yeah, the propylene ones and things like that. Benzene, or not benzene. Yeah, benzene. No, isobutyl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, benzene was in there, but there was one that was isobutyl or something like that.
Yeah,
isobutylene. This is a gasoline additive. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of deadly shit that was on that train. We'll go through that here in a minute. But as a matter of fact, before this shit starts speaking again, let me get that off the screen. Yeah, I want to leave. We can go ahead and close that one. Oh, I got the same shit up twice. Okay, so this is the actual report. It's about what, 4 or 5 pages long, something like that. We're gonna go through it. 1 of 4 pages, yeah. Let's see. On February 3rd, 2023, at about 8:54 p.m. local time, eastbound Norfolk Southern Railway General Merchandise Freight Train 32N derailed 38 rail cars on a main track, one of NS Fort Wayne line of Keystone Division, East Palestine, Ohio. The derailed equipment, including 11 tank cars carrying hazardous materials that subsequently ignited. I don't like the wording of that because that subsequently ignited was purposely done, number one, but you just make it sound like that was an accident.
Well, I don't think they intended to burn the other cars, right? Did they really? I don't think like the other 6 that had these other chemicals.
I'm not too sure. I know one
I
of
can
them
see a
was
case
kind of
for
the
the
same
vinyl
way.
chloride. Okay.
There was exylhethyl acrylate. I know is butyl acrylate. Those are kind of stable. Ethylene glycol was. This is the one that had the other temperature thing, right? Where is it? Boiling points 370. No, isobutylene. This is the gasoline additive. Yeah, boiling point of 19.6 degrees. So yeah, this one had to have the same situation. Because even in the presence of this fire, they couldn't have moved the train car out of the way anyway, because unless you're trying to bring, cranes in to move this shit. This one right here was a problem as well. The others the others weren't so bad. Benzene's temperature range, boiling point of 176. This would have caused a potential problem in the presence of a fire, but then again, I don't know how close these tankers were to each other as far as being set on fire. So this one could have caused a problem with a boiling point of 176 degrees. It definitely would have heated up to that point or higher. But yeah, the critical temperature points would have already been reached on everything. I'm pretty sure even the critical temperature point of the vinyl chloride would have been reached. 317 degrees in that fire. I'm pretty sure that's going to be hit. You know, even the where is it? Auto ignition temperature at 881. That's basically setting itself on fire. No spark needed or anything like that. It's just going to automatically just catch fire. I'm pretty sure that temperature is going to be reached as well. So I don't know. Maybe taking that into consideration, that probably was it as well. Because boiling point of this is 340 degrees. This is the ethylene glycol monobutyl acrylate. These words are just too fucking hard to say. Fuck you, scientists. Anyway,
I
auto
mean, I guess what
ignition at
I guess what
200.
I'm asking then is if they had followed protocol and kept the cars cool, all of the tankers cool, what would be the risk of sympathetic detonations of the other tankers when they're trying to do a controlled burn on, say, just 1 or up to 5 tankers? If we're just thinking if the vinyl chloride's the one that they're worried about.
If you were doing it correctly, you would have kept the other tanks cool as well. There would have been a lot of probably fire trucks out there, or spray nozzles, a lot of spray nozzles anyway, to keep the water on these tankers. Very, very little risk, if anything. The vinyl chloride, maybe the isobutylene would have been the only thing you needed to release and burn. The other ones probably wouldn't have hit those temperatures had there had been some kind of control to the burn other than just puncturing the tanks and setting a blaze to it.
I'm curious
I
as
don't think
to
the other ones would have been at risk.
I don't know if anything has been put out there as to what procedure they did to puncture the tanks. What did they use? And then how did they ignite it?
Don't know. That's what I haven't even read this one yet. I kind of avoided doing this so I could do a live reaction to
Mm-hmm.
this itself. I mean, I caught this Friday before I was headed back on my trip. So, I mean, I've read the article, but I haven't read this up until this point. So, I'm not too sure. I haven't really found anything, nor have I looked hard to see what their actual procedure was on that. I'm pretty sure I could find it if I worked hard enough at it. Um, but let's see. 11 tank cars carrying hazardous materials that subsequently ignited, fueling fires that damaged an additional 12 non-derailed cars. Yeah, see, right there, that tells you they weren't even trying to do any kind of control to that at all. They say subsequently ignited, which means it accidentally caught fire, but yet in everything they've been telling us that this shit was done on purpose. So what really happened? First responders implemented a 1-mile evacuation zone surrounding the derailment site that affected up to 2,000 residents.
Okay.
Again, it is standard protocol to do that. Considering the incident, they went further out. Now, I'll show you why they straight up lied to people. As a matter of fact, I think I still have that in here. I know it too. But I can show you that they were straight up lying to people, telling them it's safe to come back a couple of days after, because yep, this is it. Okay. So this was taken from one of the air monitoring stations. I zoomed in too much. This was taken from one of the air monitoring stations outside the 1-mile zone. So we're talking about one of these blue markings right around in this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say exactly. But the percent of O2 in the air stayed at a constant 20.9%. Okay. Now, this was on February 10th. This was after the burning had already happened.
It's a week later. Yeah.
The 0.025 milligrams per meter squared of this vinyl chloride, 0.05 milligrams per meter squared of the vinyl chloride stayed roughly the same throughout the entire day. And this is when they were telling you it's safe to go back. They straight up fucking lied. They knew they were lying because this is already at dangerous levels at this point. Because close that down, minimize that. 1 part per million every 8 hours.
Yeah, how does that translate? The
part per million. Okay, this is take it
yeah,
like this. This is 1 molecule of vinyl chloride per million molecules of air.
right.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the milligrams per cubic meter. How does the math work out on that?
per cubic meter and everything like that. 0.25 is dangerous levels. 0.05 is toxic. Because this is the amounts over. This is the amount of reading per. All right, let's put it this way. This is the amount that they can register in the air quality at that point in time versus what is chemically safe. Now, if you take 1 part per million over an 8-hour period or 2 parts per million, let's go back to this. Oh, I'm sorry, 5 parts per million in 15 minutes. This would roughly be around 2.5 to 3 parts per million.
Okay.
At that point in time. And of course, it goes up to the highest being a 0.9, which would probably be that 3 to maybe 4 parts per million at that point in time.
Okay.
So yes, these were
that's what
already
I was getting at.
at toxic
how
and
does
dangerous
how do
levels.
these numbers translate to parts per million? Was what I was looking for. So.
See the CEO. This is the vinyl chloride burning right here. The benzene, phosgene, ACL, the hydrochloric acids or hydrogen chloride. They didn't register 5 miles away. Nothing registered except for the vinyl chloride. Nothing registered except for the toxic fumes from the vinyl chloride, which is to be expected because everything else didn't burn till afterwards. But they were already telling people, hey, it's safe to come back, even though these chemicals were in the atmosphere, or this vinyl chloride was in the atmosphere already at this point in time. So the phosgene gas and everything from the burn, the benzene from that tanker didn't register. There was no hydrogen chloride in the atmosphere 5 miles away from the site from what they were reading from this one right here. but they were already fucking lying, saying it's safe to come back, get back to work.
One correction though is that the benzene appears to have just they didn't even take samples for that. That's why it's grayed out. So
They didn't take samples of anything else. That's why it's that's why there's no readings. They didn't take samples of anything but the vinyl chloride. So the other things were probably in the atmosphere. The hydrogen chloride, of course, vinyl chloride mixing with the water vapor in the atmosphere does create hydrogen chloride in that point in time, which is why the burning was a great thing because it does break it down. Yes, phosgene gas is a byproduct of breaking it down. But yeah, they didn't even try to register the hydrogen chloride or anything like that. The only thing they were looking for was the vinyl chloride, which is a huge problem because this shit does a whole bunch of other things, especially when burning. This is already known situation. The fact that they were just looking for that tells me that they were just trying to cover their asses, saying it was okay for people to come back to downplay the whole situation. Let's see. There were no reported fatalities or injuries. At the time of the accident, visibility conditions were dark and clear, and the weather was 10 degrees Fahrenheit with no precipitation. Train 32N. Well, there is. Yeah, you go. Look at all that, dude.
Yeah.
Look at that. You can't sit there and tell me in any way that this shit didn't get into the groundwater, into the ground itself. All the other things that were released, these cars were burnt to a crisp right here, which is all the ones that they did burn. This has to be after the burning. But yeah, you can't. No, This shit is 3 fucking blocks away. Up here in this corner over here near these tree lines.
Yeah.
That's all residue. You can't tell me. Or maybe that's snow. It could be snow, but
hard to tell.
This being that close, I don't think that's snow though, because that would be still in the area of that burn. Maybe, but that looks like residue to me. Train 32N compromised 2 head-end locomotives, 149 rail cars, and 1 distributed power locomotive located between rail cars 109 and 110. Okay. So why the fuck didn't you break this shit up? See, that gets me. If you had 2 head-end locomotives, usually there's 1 on each side. You know, at the beginning of a train that carries the train, and 1 at the end for a return trip, so they don't have to switch around and delay things. They just bring it in, decouple everything, put a new train back together, and send it on out. But the fact that there was 1 in the middle, you could have broken this up. 149 rail cars, you could have done 2 trains, and it would have been a better situation. Let's see.
Is that I imagine that requires at least twice the crew that they had, though. I bet you that's why.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was already a skeleton crew on that in the first damn place, but I mean, you can't sit there and tell me that they couldn't have a crew standing by at their designated location, because they're already going to do that to have that crew go back in whatever direction they need to go. So yeah, you're going to need more rail workers and everything like that, but I mean, you've already stretched them to the fucking max. Safety would be the biggest concern. These people are probably falling asleep on these train cars. Let's just be honest. Unless you're headed towards a town, most of the time they're in just open areas where there's nobody around for miles, but trees and mountains and things like that. These people are probably setting a somewhat of an autopilot and sleeping, you know. But let me bring everything back up here so I can see what's going on. But yeah, that consists of 20 placarded hazardous material tankers transporting combustible liquids, flammable liquids, and flammable gases, including vinyl chloride. Notice how they didn't touch anything else. Train 32N was traveling about 47 miles an hour at the time of the derailment, which was less than the maximum authorized timetabled speed of 50 miles per hour. Train movements near derailment sites are authorized by cab signals and wayside signals indications with an overlaid positive train control system, and they're coordinated by the NS Cleveland East Train dispatcher located in Atlanta, Georgia. Why? What? Hold up. Train movements near the derailed site are authorized by cab signals and wayside signal indications with an overlaid positive train control system and are coordinated by the NS Cleveland East Train dispatcher located in Atlanta, Georgia. You got somebody half a country away telling these people what to do? Holy fuck. All right. So if this were up to Atlanta, look, I live close to Atlanta, Georgia. All right. I'm in northern Alabama. I already know the fuckery that happens in Atlanta. Yeah, I can tell you they were told to let it ride. Somebody probably brought up that, hey, we got some bad readings on this. This is, look, 48 degrees above normal here. Now it's 113. They were told to let it ride. I guarantee you that's what happened. Especially knowing that it came from Atlanta, Georgia. The positive train control system was enabled and operating at the time of the derailment. Train 32N was operating with a dynamic brake application as the train passed a wayside defect detector at the east side of Palestine, Ohio. At milepost 49.81, the wayside defect detector, Jesus Christ. Wayside defector detector, the thing, not, or hot bearing detector, transmitted a critical audible alarm message instructing the crew to slow and stop the train to inspect a hot axle. At that point in time, it was already 263 degrees above, which means, yeah, metal has become, the steel that is involved in these axles has already started to become pretty pliable at that point in time anyway. Heating up that to that kind of temperature, metal fatigue would have already set in. To inspect a hot axle, the train engineer increased the dynamic brake application to further slow and stop the train. During the deceleration, an automatic emergency brake application initiated and train 32N came to a stop. On the Fort Wayne line of the Keystone Division, Norfolk Southern had equipped their rail network engineers with the hot box detectors. They're actually, what are they? Hot bearing detectors. Systems to access the temperature conditions of the wheel bearings while en route. The functions of the hot bearing detector is to detect overheated bearings and provide audible real-time warnings to train crews. Train 32N passed 3 hot bearing detector systems on its trip before derailment. At mile point 79.9, the suspect bearing from the 23rd car had a recorded temperature of 38 degrees above Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Fahrenheit above ambient temperature, which was 10 degrees. So this thing was already at 48 degrees. When the train, which I guess would be normal working condition at that point, when the train 32N passed the next hot bearing detector at mile point 69.01, the bearing's recorded temperature was 103 degrees above ambient. But in that article, it said 113.
Yeah, I'm guessing that the article didn't really understand how to read this, the writer, because what they said was, well, actually, didn't it say like 48 degrees above normal, and then they added 10 degrees because it was 10 degrees Fahrenheit for ambient. I don't think they understood how temperature math actually works.
Okay, so 103 degrees above ambient. So yeah, they probably added that 10 degrees onto there, which that is a huge typo and a big mistake. But yeah,
Yeah.
the third hot bearing detector at 49.81 recorded the suspect's bearing temperature at 250 degrees, 253 degrees. Yeah, so they did add those 10 degrees into that. Norfolk Southern had a gauge established the following hot bearing detector alarm thresholds above ambient temperature. Between 170 and 200, warm bearing non-critical, stop and inspect. A difference between bearings on the same axle greater than or equal to 115 non-critical, stop and inspect. So they didn't stop and inspect even though they were at 103 degrees and it was already jumping up rapidly. Which again, if I saw that, my ass had been like, nope, I don't care. Write me up, fire me, whatever, stop the train. Because there is something wrong. If you were jumping that big of a degree change within where is it? 69 to
It's a 10
49,
mile
20, that's 20 miles.
or 20 miles. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking of
20
the
miles,
first
you're
one.
still jumping that high? No, that is a third. Okay, so
Well, yeah, on the
79
third,
to
by
69.
yeah. I mean, because by the third one, you're already at 253. Like, of course,
Yeah. But in a 10-mile
but
range, jumping that far, yeah, I'd have been like, nope, 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 something's going on. We need to stop. I don't care because that's not a normal temperature jump over just running normally. You know, if everything were okay, no, that is too big of a jump. You're talking about 70, close to 70 degrees over the course of 10 miles. Nah, I don't like that, dude. I'd have been like, stop it. I don't care. Fire me if nothing's wrong. But I feel like there is something wrong. Greater than 200 degrees Fahrenheit, critical, set out rail car. By the time you already figured out something was wrong, you were way over that moment. After the train stopped, the crew observed fire and smoke and notified the Cleveland East dispatcher on a possible derailment. With dispatcher authorization, the crew applied handbrakes to two rail cars at the head of the train, uncoupled the head end locomotives, and moved the locomotives about 1 mile from the uncoupled rail cars. Responders arrived at the derailment site and began response efforts. Okay, you remember in that article where they were saying after the train had stopped, they got out and notified that there was a problem? You remember that?
uh, no, I don't recall.
Yeah,
Which article
in
was
the
that?
article they said they derailed the article that this came
Was
from.
it? Oh,
They said that,
hmm,
they had derailed or decoupled the train cars, and once the train came to a stop, they had notified at that point. But from here, they're saying they moved the rest of the train 1 mile away. Why the fuck didn't you signal there could be a problem as you were trying to get that train 1 mile away instead of waiting 1 mile?
here I'm bringing up the article. Let's see. Axle
Yes,
broke, 38 cars derailed.
I
Once the
just don't
train
want.
came to a stop, the crew alerted authorities of possible derailment and fire before moving the engines away from the scene.
Okay, so they did it before. Okay, okay. Responders arrived to the derailment site and began response efforts. On February 5th, responders mitigated the fire by five derailed .105 specification tankers, railcars 28 to 31, and 55 carrying 155,580 gallons of vinyl chloride continued to concern authorities because the temperature inside one tank car was still rising. The increase in temperature suggested that the vinyl chloride was undergoing a polymerization reaction, which could pose an explosion hazard. Responders, okay, so that's why okay. Yeah, because where's the reactivity points? Reactivity, no specific as reactivities, hazardous. We'll have to look into that real deep into this once we get to it. But there is a point in temperature wise to where this thing starts to create a hardened plastic. And it does create heat when it does that because it is a chemical change within it. Um, the increase in temperature was suggested that the vinyl chloride was undergoing a polymerization reaction, which could pose an explosion hazard. Responders scheduled a controlled venting of the 5 vinyl chloride tank cars to release and burn the vinyl chloride, which is what needs to happen in that situation. Expanded the evacuation zone to a 1 mile by 2 mile area and dug ditches to contain released vinyl chloride liquid while it vaporized and burned. The controlled venting began at 4:40 p.m. on February 6th and continued for several hours. While on the scene, National Transportation Safety Board investigators examined railway equipment and track conditions and reviewed data from the signal. Wayside defect detectors, those that fucked up way of saying something, local surveillance cameras, and the lead locomotive's event recorder and forward-facing and inward-facing image recorders and completed interviews. NTSB investigators identified and examined the first rail car to derail, the 23rd rail car in the consist. Technically, that's right, but that sounds weird.
It does.
Surveillance video from a local resident showed what appeared to be a wheel bearing in the final stage of overheat failure moments before the derailment. I think I actually have that video still. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Is it this one? Nope. That's not it. That's not it.
Play a song called "I'm Offended."
In light of your unique situation,
That's not it either. Let me fucking mute this until I find it. Nope. Nope. Yeah, that's the plume of smoke afterwards.
Wow.
I guess I don't have it.
Let me see if I have it. I might have bookmarked it.
I need to go through my recordings and start moving them out of there. Everything's named just the date and time. But surveillance videos.
Actually, I remember who sent it to me. Let me see if I can check those DMs.
No, I have a screenshot of that because that was part of the video. One of the videos that I did. Ohio problem policy freezer.
All right, I found I think it's the same video.
All right,
Let me share it. Not this one.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is the video that they were talking about right there.
Yeah. Should show up in about 4-ish seconds. There it is.
Right there. Okay.
Yeah, I believe this is surveillance camera in Salem, Ohio, which is about the second HBD box at mile post 69.
So there was already no.
And yeah, and Kat had mentioned that the people saw the flame on the train and called 911 like well before this derailment happened. And I mean, I don't know how that communication works, if what dispatch did with that information and what emergency responders did with that, or if
that's a huge problem.
Yeah, they said that there's like 6 911 calls talking about the fire on the train for like a half an hour before before it derailed.
Right. They should have already. Jesus Christ. So that was a fail on a lot of different things. All right. The wheel bearing and affected wheel set had been collected as evidence and will be examined by NTSB. The vinyl chloride tank car top fittings including the relief valves, were also removed and examined by the NTSB on the scene. The top fittings will be shipped to Texas for testing under the direction of the NTSB. Hazardous materials tank cars have been decontaminated. NTSB investigators returned to Ohio on February 21st, 2023, to examine each hazardous material tank car, document damage, and secure evidence for laboratory analysis. The NTSB's investigation is ongoing. Further investigative activity will focus on the wheel set and bearing, tank car design, and derailment damage, and a review of accident response, including the venting and burning of the vinyl chloride, rail car design, and maintenance procedures and practices. Again, I think this needs to be done by a third party because that's going to be a whole we investigated ourselves situation. NS use of wayside defect detectors, NS railcar inspection practices. The NTSB is not involved in air monitoring, testing of water quality, and environmental remediation or evacuation orders. Yes, that all had to be done by third parties. There was a lot of people that actually went up there willfully and did it themselves. And I'm waiting to see what the fuck they find.
Mm-hmm.
Questions on environmental issues should be referred to the Environmental Protection Agency's EPA, which didn't do shit until Trump said he was going to go down there. Parties in the investigations, including the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, Federal Railroad Administration, Ohio State Highway Patrol, the Village East of East Palestine, Norfolk Southern Railway, Trinity Industries Leasing Company, G-Tax Corporation, and the Brotherhood of Railway Carmen, the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trailmen, and the International Association of Firefighters. I want to know how many of like the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers, Brotherhood of Railway Carmen, International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, Transportation Workers. I wonder how many of these were the workers that were going to go on strike, and Biden told them to go fuck off and get back to work. I wonder how many of those were the ones that were sounding the alarm saying they were going to go on strike. But that's it on that one. World Bank report on standard gauge railway. Those might be worth a look later. All right. So, yeah, it seems like they knew there was a problem way beforehand, and they did nothing about it. And again, like I said, if it was coming from Atlanta, Georgia, sorry, if it was coming from Atlanta, Georgia, I could already tell you they were told to let that shit ride, go fuck yourself, let it go. It's not on us. Which means the people in Atlanta, Georgia need to be held accountable more than anybody else because they
Let's see,
allowed that to happen.
Let's see, overlay position, positive train control system, and are coordinated by the train dispatcher. Like, I'm trying to understand what this dispatcher's job fully entails. Like, to me, like, well, I mean, it's just my opinion of how it should be run, but like, to me, like the crew that's the field crew that's actually on the train driving the damn thing, whether it's on autopilot or not, are the ones who should be making the call on to whether or not they can.
I mean, it is their ass on their, them on the line. So yeah.
But I mean, this gets talked about in safety briefings all the time when they talk about like why are accidents getting worse, or why are we having more incidents than in the past, or why are we above industry average? It's things like that where the wrong people have the decision rights on whether to make a safety call and say that, hey, we're going to stop this train. Yeah, it costs money. But it's cheaper than the cost that these residents are having to incur for all of their medical costs. I mean, and whatever else is going to come from it in terms of cleanup. But I guess if Norfolk Southern thinks they can get away without paying anything, then all you have is just your conscience to tell you that, hey, we should just do the right thing. I guess. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it all comes down to the human element in it, but it just it's cheaper to stop the train and delay a delivery, put a little bit of money behind that and everything like that for that than it would be to lose 115,580 gallons of just vinyl chloride alone. That would be a lot cheaper to just stop and be like, "Hey, we may have a problem. Let's go look." Okay, we don't have a problem. Great, start the shit back up. But this is the list of the cars from 20. These are the ones that were decoupled from
Okay.
car 23 to 74 that were within the vicinity of the accident. The wreck. I'm going to call it a wreck. It's not a derailment. This is a huge problem. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wasn't there another one as well?
I thought they said there were
5.
5.
Yeah, 5
But
containers of
those
vinyl
4
chloride.
are right next to each other.
Yes. And what was
I'm
it?
like, if you put
32
space
in?
between them, then perhaps you don't have to worry about one of them causing the others to heat up.
Yeah, I mean, you could literally put these cars in between propylene glycols, the dipropylene glycol, the polyethylene, which isn't that bad of a problem, but still could have caused polymerization. I get you. Polyvinyl. I mean, that's already PVC. Petroleum lube oil. I'd rather that shit be in between. That shit can burn. Polypropylene glycol, propylene glycol, diethylene glycol, petro oil. Additives fuel that doesn't say exactly what it is, just polyvinyl thing. You could have fucking look, there was frozen vegetables in there as well. You could have put them between that. Sheet steel in there, powder flakes, hydraulic cement,
Well, there's those benzene
malt
cars.
liquors. Well, if you set the malt liquor on fire, that'd probably be a bigger issue. But yeah, I mean, there is so much you could have done to mitigate this disaster just in the design of this train alone. But yeah, it was 32 in, which is the connection between these two right here. That was the actual problem. So car 31 was the one that was heating up, which would have caused this one. If that would have exploded, would have caused that, which I will say this, the reason why they thought polymerization was happening was the storage aspect. The skin, body protection, skin protection, protection, storage. Small spill, large spill. I guess storage would be close to the bottom, wouldn't it? After all the bullshit, here's how you store it. Dot classifications. But yeah, it's like a storage. Come on, where is it? I'll take a look at it real closely here in a bit. But yeah, in the storage aspect of it, there's not that much of a time frame where this needs to be used, because it's not like you can just like put this at 0 degrees and put it on sub-zero temperatures or something like that and just keep it around forever. No, this actually has to be used very quickly. Hazardous polymerization under normal conditions of storage and use. Hazardous polymerization will not occur. Reactivities. Product is stable. Product of hazardous reactions will not occur. All possible sources of ignition, oxidizers, incompatible material. Oxygen is an oxidizer. So yeah, that was probably what was happening to it. But yeah, there's a section in here where it's just like, hey, you can't store this shit forever. Use it quickly. Um, but hey, I mean, we might as well get into the damn thing. Let's go back up. Let's see. Signal words, hazardous statements, danger, of course. Extremely flammable gas, may form explosive mixture with air, contains gas under pressure, may explode if heated, may cause frostbite, may displace oxygen and cause rapid suffocation, may cause cancer, may cause damage to organs through prolonged use or repeated exposure of your liver, which filters out toxins in your blood. That's why it targets the liver. Other specific instructions for do not handle. We already went through that. Let's see. Any other points? Eye contact. This is what really bothers me. Like, you mix this shit with water, it causes hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen chloride, right? Immediately flush eyes with plenty of water. Just put hydrogen chloride in your eyes. If you get it in your eyes, that's fine. It's cool. That fucks with me, dude. I mean, that's really all you got. Yeah, any kind of other saline solution or anything like that would probably exacerbate the issue. But yeah, talking about eyes being, it's got my eyes burning now. Let's see. Treat symptomatically. Contact poison treatment specialist if immediately large quantities have been ingested or inhaled. The people were evacuated, but yet told to get back into the area as the burning was happening, though. That fucks with me.
Yeah.
As the shit was still being burned, they were told to get back in and get back to work, go about your daily lives.
You remember
Contains.
what Kat talked about that one um, business? I don't remember what they made, what their product was, but their entire crew is hospitalized now because of that.
Yeah.
They're on permanent nebulizers.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Crash and Flagrant, we're talking to a woman that lives in Ohio. They gave me the information. We will be live tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Me and Freely Ashley will both be live on both of our channels. We will be talking to Kat ourselves. I have already sent the information if other people would like to talk to her as well, for people of higher standards, higher viewers, things like that, to be able to reach out to her if they would like to talk to her as well. So yeah, we are trying to escalate the voice of it, at least this woman's voice, to get an account of what's happening on the grounds, kind of situation going on there, and what happened from the beginning. And Crash, I do appreciate you and Flagrant Ball for doing that for me. That was incredibly great.
Yeah, I gotta give Flagrant props for finding her. I mean, all he did was just look up businesses in that area and just start making phone calls, and then one phone call led to another phone call and said, "Hey, this person might want to talk to you." And eventually, he found Kat. So he did a lot of good work. I was out on vacation, so I didn't really help him out with that. He'd call me on occasion, and I'd give him some ideas, but he figured most of this out by himself. So he definitely put that. Yeah, for sure. And then also again, Flagrant Triggers. He does merch, and go buy yourself a T-shirt and support them, residents of Ohio.
I still have that up, right? Yeah. Go fuck yourself, Ohio. I like that. I'm gonna get me one after this is done. I'm gonna get me one. But yeah, let's see. Promptly isolate the scene. We already went through that. If in fire involved. Yeah. We already covered that. The large spill. Immediately contact emergency personnel. Stop leak if without risk, which there was a risk. It wasn't leaking at that point, but it was already going through what they say would be what they thought was polymerization, because you can't store this shit forever. Let's see. Section 1, information is section 13 for waste disposal. That's probably where it is. But the vinyl chloride, of course, 1 part per million every 8 hours, 5 parts per million in 15 minutes. So, yeah, you're breathing. If you're anywhere close to this shit, you're already getting that over that 5 parts per million within 15 minutes. Environmental exposure controls. Emissions from ventilation or work process equipment should be checked to ensure they comply with the requirements of environmental protection legislation. In some cases, fume scrubbers, filters, and engineering modifications to process the equipment will be necessary to reduce emissions to acceptable levels. They didn't have any of that shit. They just had people with matches, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, they damn sure didn't have any of that. Let's see. Wash hands, forearms, face thoroughly after handling chemical products, before eating, smoking, and using lavatory at the end of the working period. Approximate techniques should be used to remove potentially contaminated clothing. Wash contaminated clothing before reusing. Ensure that eye wash stations and safety showers are close to the workstation location. Here's where we get to the good point of this. Of course, the boiling point, like we mentioned before, 17.9 degrees Fahrenheit. This becomes a solid instead of a liquid at less than negative 244.8 degrees, which is incredibly fucking cold.
Yeah.
What is absolute zero again?
Minus 273.
So this thing
Oh,
has
wait,
to be
that's minus
close to
273
absolute zero?
Celsius, actually. Sorry. So hold on. I have to
Okay.
redo the math.
Okay.
have to-
I was about to say, hold the fuck on. How are we
Uh,
transporting this?
Let me see here.
Critical temperature, of course, is 317 degrees, which polymerization in that aspect would bring it to a temperature point of that, which, of course, would start to boil it away, building up the pressure in the tank, which means an explosion would happen. Flash point in both open and closed environments is negative 108.4, which means it's going to cause a blowback if there is an ignition. And of course, the lower and upper explosive limits. Lower explosive is 33.8% of the air that is around this is made up of vinyl chloride. It becomes to an explosive limit and doesn't stop being explosive until 29.3%, which is a huge range.
All right. In Fahrenheit, absolute zero is minus 433.
Shit, that.
Yeah.
That's cold as fuck. But yeah, at a melting point, that's already like more than half. Damn. All right, so it's not a solid till it's damn near close to absolute zero. But yeah, vapor density of 2.2, air being equal to 1. This is twice the density of air. So any vapor is going to fall along the grounds, spread out from there until it closes up in a certain area and then starts to rise up. So by the time, if you're standing up and you're in this area, by the time you smell it, you're already screwed anyway. Solubility in water to a point to where it creates its own solution and it's not hydrogen chloride is 1.1 grams per liter. And there are 115,580 gallons. Just to give you a little bit of idea.
By the way, that was per tanker, wasn't it?
No, that was all together.
Okay.
Gram value is 1.1.
Are we sure? I feel like those because those tankers, you can easily fit 100,000 gallons into one of those rail tankers. I know because we had one of my previous jobs. There was a fertilizer plant that had their own rail loading. And I'm pretty sure that 100,000 gallon tanker is not uncommon.
Must be We can use Wikipedia for that. Maximum capacity of 34.5.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that had to have been all four or all five.
Or maybe I'm
Close to
thinking
it.
in pounds. That's right. I'm probably converting in my head because I think we sold it in pounds. That's probably what I'm doing
Well,
wrong.
I mean, you can't top this off anyway because I think it's
Yeah.
this one. They're back on the four wheelers. Fuck. Anyway, sorry. You can't top these off completely because I think in one part of this, it may not be with this one, but you do have to give it some kind of room headway up in there to so it's not like topped off 100%. But yeah, just to let you guys know of that, if we take results in gallons, swap units 115580. What is that? 437,537,830.93.99. So 894 grams of this shit were in there. So you would need 400 and probably 400, close to 440 million liters of water to make this a solution to where it does not create hydrogen or hydrogen chloride. So yeah, you could drop that shit in the Atlantic and it'd still be a problem. Let's see. Auto ignition temperature 881. That that does concern me though, because with everything that was happening there, I feel like if they didn't puncture and burn all of these tankers like that, I think that auto ignition temperature would have been reached inside one of those tankers. And that would have definitely caused an explosion because 881 degrees in a chemical fire is not unheard of.
Hmm.
You know, that I think that could have definitely been reached had they have not done that. Of course, this oxidizes, anything oxidizer like waters and hey fellas, what's up, Flagrant? But yeah, the fact that it was probably all right. The coolant system in these tankers probably damaged already. So which means it was building up temperature in there. It was already vaporizing. It was starting to mix with the air that would be at the top of these tankers anyway, which would have started the oxidization process, causing polymerization, of course, causing the heat to rise in this. So it was already trying to become somewhat of a solid in the first place. Um, so yeah, they did have to puncture, they did have to burn to kind of bring this to a point to where it wouldn't have caused an explosion, which would have been a huge problem. Could you imagine an entire town being one huge PVC pipe? That would be a thing. People included everything in there, all animals. It'd just be one huge PVC pipe cover up kind of situation. That's what they were trying to avoid with that situation. But it is a known carcinogen. Let's see. Vinyl chloride. That's spiking the potential. We don't need to worry about that. Um, Limited quantities. Yes, reportable quantity. Classifications. Special precautions for user. Transport within user's premises. Always transport in closed containers that are upright and secure. Ensure the persons transporting the product know what to do with the event of an accident or spillage. I don't think they did.
Yeah, I doubt that. I have doubts that the crew had any idea of what to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they damn
I
sure
mean,
didn't because if
you
that
wouldn't
were a
consider that.
thing,
It's not. There's a reason why they have like hazmat teams. Is
yes.
uh
I mean, if you're working on a railroad or anything like that, then and you're carrying hazardous materials, you at least need to be somewhat trained on what you're doing. With these chemicals, you at least need to know these chemicals and what to do in a situation where something like this does pop off, because that's like taking somebody like you and sticking it in an atmosphere like where I worked at, like, you know, in dry erase markers, you have Nicaine, right? Do you know what Nicaine is?
Heard of it before, but I don't know.
Exactly. So if I were to throw you into a situation, say making this dry erase marker without knowing what the hell chemicals you're using, something bad is going to happen. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are certain in the process of making dry erase ink, there is a certain process you have to use, mixing chemicals a certain way, a certain amount. You know, you have to switch between the chemicals so you don't overload on one to cause an instant heating reaction within them. I mean, it's as making dry erase ink is a huge process behind it. So that's that, if you smell a dry erase marker, that pungent odor that you get from it, that is actually Nicaine. And there's very little of it in that ink there, but the the amount that goes into these things is kind of deadly. Like I remember when I was making it one time, I didn't have my mask sealed correctly because I just put it on. I didn't cover the cartridges and breathe in to see if it sucks to my face. So I started making this, right? And I opened up this Nicaine drum and I grabbed the pump and I was going to stick it into the Nicaine drum. And as soon as I brought the pump over the Nicaine drum, the next thing I remember is my coworker waking me up
Mm.
because my mask wasn't sealed and the fumes hit me and I
Mm-hmm.
instantly passed out. And I was just like, fuck. And for like 2 days, dude, I was just like weak and just like out of it for a good long time. It was about roughly around 2 days just from one small instance of the fumes hitting me. So yeah, in things like this, I can understand how dangerous this can get because I was only dealing with a 40 gallons in a drum. I wasn't dealing with 115,000 gallons, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a chemical they could possibly run in the water system that will sink to the riverbed and bind it for neutralization of the phosgene? I don't think it's phosgene in there, and I'll show you here in a minute why. Um, but as far as that goes, honestly, I don't know about that. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is some kind of filtration systems that would have to be run within that water system. Um, but I'm not too sure. I like I said, I don't think it's phosgene that's sitting in there, and I'll show you here why in a minute. Oh, it's still going to destroy the water supply no matter what for a good little bit. This is let me get that off there. This is going to be pretty much a hazardous area for a while, though. Um, what was it? Vapor pressure, specific gravities, moleculars. Where was that one? What was that one I was showing you beforehand? Wasn't it the butyl acrylate?
I thought wasn't it the isobutylene?
Isobutylene. No, that's not the one that's toxic to the fish, though. Well, it is,
Oh,
but
hmm.
very toxic to fish. It's like the first ones toxic to aquatic life. Butyl acrylate.
I can't remember all these chemicals. I got a C in chemistry, so that's why I went electrical engineering, not chemical.
Density of it, boiling point, flash point, summation, flammability, lower explosive, upper ignition densities. It has to be the exohethal then, right?
That's the
Relative density, vapor density, thermal viscosity. Yeah, viscosity
oh,
right here. 1.75 millipascals. Solubility in water, 9.6 milligrams per liter. I think this is what is in the water supply because it will sink to the bottom. So I got rid of that video, didn't I? Shit. I had it queued up. That one. No. That one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these chemical plumes, like even the one with JD Vance where he drags it across the water,
all in the bottom of the creek bed.
that's coming up from the bottom. Now, I'm not for sure. I'm not the one testing or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and say that right there is this exylhethyl acrylate, because this is going to sit on the bottom of water and it is very toxic to fish. As it says right here at the very top, harmful to aquatic life with long lasting effects, toxic to aquatic life. I think that's what's in the water supply. Now, what's the other one? The beetle acrylate will sit on top of the water. So you would see that shine on the top of the water just normally, if that were the case. But this is a little less dense than water is. Viscosities are less than water would be. The density is less than water would be at that point in time. So yeah, this is going to sit on top of the water, whereas the exylhethyl, the ethyl hexyl words, whatever the fuck, ethyl hexyl acrylate. Yeah, this is going to sit on the bottom. So I think this is what is in the water supply at that point in time, because this one was one of the ones that was actually released, and this was one of the ones that was not burned. This is well, I mean, it was burned, but that was one that they opened up the ditch for and let it sink in. However, the boiling point of this is 215 degrees Celsius. Let's do a little E to F conversion. So it needs to be 419 degrees before it'll start to boil. So yeah, that's unless you set this shit on fire, it's not going to boil away at all. It does. Where is it? Solubility in water is 9.6. It's not really that good at being water soluble in the first place. That's the actual point of it. It's an acrylate. It's used to make plastics. So yeah, this isn't supposed to be mixed with water. It's kind of the purpose behind it. It is a combustible liquid, but it's not going to boil away. This shit will seep into the ground. It will get into the water supply. It will stay on the bottom of everything. Excavating, moving it in any way, shape, or form will bring it to the surface. I think that's what's sitting in the bottom of the water supply there, Fragrant. Skip over the contaminated area. Depending on how much got into the. Let's see. I should bring that up. I think the only feasible option is to create a new man-made river systems that skip over contaminated area. That would be, depending on how much was released into the water supply or into the ground, I would say that would be an impossibility kind of point. Because if you take 30,000 gallons and put it into the ground to set it on fire, this shit's going to, whatever is not burning on the surface is going to seep into the ground anyway, and it's going to spread out into a wider area. So yeah, miles of this shit's going to be affected. So I don't see that being a feasible thing. Like I said, I think this is going to be a hazardous area for a long time. The ethylene glycol that was there, boiling point is 340 degrees Fahrenheit. Molecular weight of it, that's not really water soluble, greater than or equal to 100 milligrams per milliliter. So it is very water soluble at that point in time. This can have an effect on the wildlife, but it's not toxic to that point. Of course, if you're literally swimming in it, yeah, of course it's going to kill anything. But yeah, this is going to mix well with the water supply, and of course it will be effective, or water supply will be affected from this, especially with as much as is what's sitting there. But I don't think this is the issue with the water. Lower explosive limit is 1.1% to 10.6%, which is very, very small in comparison to the vinyl chloride at 3.8 to 29.3. The exalhethyl, the lower explosive limit of 0.9% with an upper explosive limit of 6%, even smaller window. The boiling range with no data available. It does boil away at 419 degrees. Where is it? Solubility in water. Formation of flammable gases. Forms no flammable gases in the presence of water. So the video that I actually brought up there, not that one. Not that one. That one. That right there is not caused by the exalhethyl acrylate.
Come here.
But it would be caused by the butyl acrylate because this is like a butane kind of situation. That would be causing the flame in the water. Assuming this is real. Now, somebody could have put like lighter fluid on a plate and set this on fire, you know? But yeah.
I mean, that might even just be. This happens all the time nowadays, and it's kind of just bugs the hell out of me. People just share old videos and then relabel them as like something relevant to some story.
Right.
Like, just look at the Ukraine war and how people share stuff from like actual cutscenes from video games.
Goes to Kiev.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wish. Why do people do that? Why? Why do you need to make stuff up?
Did you see that video or the pictures of there was some kind of like war zone battleground that happened and it had like cars overturned and they looked like they were burnt to a crisp, but yet not a single window in the area was blown out? Did you ever see that picture?
I've not seen that. No.
Oh my god! I know this is off topic, but I need to bring this up.
All right, while you're doing that, I'm gonna let.
Green. Is where was that picture? This is like beginning of the close to the beginning. Yeah. Do you see any damage to the windows here?
No, they look clean.
See, where's the other one with the overturned car that looked like it was burnt to a crisp? Jesus, can I find that? Do you see damages to windows? Explosions that close doing that kind of thing would have rattled those windows.
Oh
They
yeah.
would have broke them out. But yeah. That things like that, that's what makes me question a lot of what they say in Ukraine. But yeah, the butyl acrylate, where is it? Flashpoint boiling range with no data available, so this thing isn't going to boil away unless it's really, really heated up. Auto ignition is 275 degrees Celsius, which at that point is 520 degrees Fahrenheit. Which again, depending on how close the cars were to each other, I don't see this one really causing an explosion hazard though. Vapor density of 4.4, which is worse than the vinyl chloride. It will fall to the ground before rising up. Solubility in water is 1.7 grams per liter, so there's no way in hell you're going to make this a solvent within their creeks and waterbeds and things like that. But yeah, I think this is what is actually in the water affecting the fish. let's see. We got which one is this? This is isobutylene. Extremely flammable gas may form explosive actions. Contains gas under pressure. May displace oxygen. This is the gasoline additive, I believe. Um, yeah, yeah. This is the gasoline additive. Physical state: gas, compressed gas, colorless characteristics. Odor characteristic not available. Melting points. Again, this is half the point of 0 to or absolute 0. It does boil away at 19.6 degrees though. So yeah, I can see this causing a build up in the tanker, being relative to a fire. Anything roughly around 20 degrees Fahrenheit, this is going to start causing a vapor and building up. So this one I could see puncturing and setting on fire. Lower explosive limit is 1.8%, upper is 9.6. This is a decent window. Being a little bit lower or a little bit heavier than air quality, this is of course going to hit the ground, but it will take a minute to do so. Solubility is 0.26 grams per liter, so this is actually very soluble in water, making it kind of inert. But this is, like I said, this isn't the one that's highly toxic to aquatic life, so I don't see this being the reason why the fish are dying at that point. Um, let's see, this is the benzene that was there. It's a watery liquid, yellowish in color, no odor characteristics to it. Boiling point is 176.2 degrees, so this will stay in liquid form unless you put heat to it. Fire would do that, depending on how relatively close it was to it all. Evaporation rates of 3.5. It's going to take a while to evaporate. Lower explosive is 1.2, upper is 7.8, so that's an even smaller window. Takes 1.88 grams per liter to be soluble in water. Again, I don't think this is the reason why it's in the. I don't think this is what's in the water, but the vapor density is 2.7, which is the highest one in all these, meaning it's going to hit the ground first and it's going to stay on the ground and displace the oxygen around the ground before moving higher. Let's see, viscosity says the molecular weight. I don't think, like I said, I don't think this is what's in the water supply, this benzene here, because this is usually used in like pesticides, things like that. Now, this would kill wildlife. This being in the burning in the air may be the reason why like birds are dying, because this is used in pesticides, this kind of situation. That may be why birds are dying, but I don't think this would have made it to the water supply enough, because this is only one container, and supposedly they got to it. They purposely released this one just to relieve pressure in it, just in case. I don't think this one would have come in contact with the water supply as far as that amount being concerned. Like I said, though, the one I'm considering that is in the water itself is this butyl acrylate. That is the one I'm thinking that's what's in the water. They released it, let it get into the ditch. While they were burning it away, it seeped into the ground, seeping into the water. It is highly toxic to the fish. It's going to sit on the bottom of any waterbed completely. When the reports come out, I would be highly surprised if this was not on the list. There could be other things that are involved in that water supply, yes, and there probably are, but I would be highly surprised if they did not find this on the list. But yeah, so that covers pretty much everything that was on that. Of course, there were 5 vinyl chloride containers, 1 ethylene glycol container, 1 exylhethyl container, the butyl acrylate, isobutylene, 2 benzene containers.
They haven't said that the benzene got released. Everything that I've seen I haven't seen anything that said that the benzene was affected. So right now I'm still assuming that the benzene tankers were not damaged.
Well, they say it was damaged, fire, and pinged, no breach. So the containers
Okay,
were
so
damaged.
no breach. Okay.
Yeah, but there was no breach to it. Now, I don't see them having to burn that though,
No.
as far as that's concerned, because there was not an issue with this. The car's vent product through the PDR and ignited, vent and burn performed. That was one of the vinyl chlorides. Isobutylene, some flame impingement, no signs of breach. Um,
Hmm.
Butyl acrylate, head breach, lost entire load, spill, and fire. So yeah, I'm going to say that is what is in the water supply with that because of that reason right there. Lost entire load. So all of that got out of the container before they could set it on fire. Exalhethyl acrylate, car breached on head end, amount of product spill in car pending. So they still haven't said in this report to the date this was released, how much of the exalhethyl acrylate was released. Ethylene glycol, monobutyl ether, unknown status at that point. But the vinyl chloride was the one that they were doing all that for. I don't think coming from this, I don't think the benzene was released. But the butyl acrylates from this lost entire load. I'm gonna say that's what's in the water supply.
Hey, can you send me this particular document? I think I didn't get this one from you.
No, this came from an Axios thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'll send the link to that right there. That was in the Axios. Let's see, AXIOS. What we know about a hard train derailment. It came from this one right here. Allowed them to
Okay.
turn. Washington Post. It was a list sent to Norfolk Southern. That's where I got it from. But yeah, with that being the case, like I said, butyl acrylates. I think that's what's in the water supply, which is toxic to fish and would be toxic to humans at that point in time too. With the entire load gone, yeah. If they do not say this is what's in the water supply, I'm going to be incredibly surprised and I'm going to call out that lie. Because the head was breached, the head of the car, which is that circular drum at the very top or at the very beginning of the car, there was a breach in that, probably at the bottom of it, to have it all spill out before they could get to it and light it on fire. That's why I say I don't think it's vinyl chloride in the water. I think it's a butyl acrylate. But if anybody's got any questions or anything, go ahead and hit them in chat right here. Do you have anything, Crash?
No, I don't. This is highly educational. I don't know that I would still get that B in chemistry after today, but maybe I get the C plus.
Oh, look, it wouldn't have happened for me until after I worked for Sanford. So yeah, it was just bad. Like the different chemical mixtures and things like that. I was rough at that too. I still falter on that kind of situation, but I can tell you that the butyl acrylate, the vinyl chloride, and the exalhethyl acrylate are used in different kinds of plastics. Of course, the vinyl chloride is the main component in PVC. That's why they say don't heat it up, don't catch it on fire, things like that. You know, if you need to make a bend in it, don't put heat on it and bend the tube because it does release the vapors within the vinyl chloride for that. But yeah, they're made for making plastics.
Right.
The
So,
monobutyl ether is a different story. I think that was I forget what that was for.
so we think that the cause for like the chemical bronchitis that Kat and others residents are experiencing is because they told them it was clear to come back, but they were still burning the vinyl chloride. So do we think it's from phosgene gas release?
That could be a component of it. Once you do burn vinyl chloride, it does break down into different things. The phosgene gas would be the major component of the problems that they're having, especially respiratory.
Mhm.
It could be now the rashes and everything are probably the hydrogen chloride that is
Mhm.
still in the air. Because even if you burn it, if it being an incomplete burn, it's still making hydrogen chloride. I think that's where the rashes are coming from because that is very acidic. Hydrogen chloride is hydrochloric acid.
Right, when it mixes with
I
water or it
yeah,
binds to water.
I think I don't know what is ethylene. I don't even know what this is used for, honestly. Glycol monobutyl liquid with mild ether odor like used as key ingredients in the production of cleaners, degreasers, and coatings for years. Okay, so cleaners, degreasers, things like that. At a high amount as what's there, this would probably be a huge problem. But being kind of like a cleaner degreaser, unless you're putting this in your system, like eating or drinking it, I don't see it causing that big of an issue. Um, the other ones, though, yeah,
What's interesting about that is it's car number 36 and it's just unknown status.
yeah,
It's the
like
only
they
one
don't.
out of all of them. It's like, what do you mean by unknown status? Is it just not there? Like,
What's it?
you
What
know,
happened to this thing? You didn't even look at it. It's what's going on?
right?
But yeah, car breached head end amount of product still in car pending the exylhethyl acrylate. That's another one that still kind of worries me. The amount of product still in car pending. Um, there was a car breach on the head end, so that means there was some that leaked out. As much, how much I couldn't say, but the entire car for the butyl acrylate is gone. It was lost before they even could put fire to it. So I'm gonna say that's what's in the water. Let's see. Let's see. An even bigger problem is that they haven't released the data on what compounds were released made by mixing all the compounds and burning them. Right. Right. That is an even bigger issue. Some of these things can combining together will create a different chemical altogether, which means that is a different reaction if put to fire, also a different reaction if it were to get into the ground and water supply. You are correct about that one. But I think that's it for right now.
All right.
All right.
It's been good.
Where can everybody find you, Crash?
Best place would be Twitter. I'm Crash Mondo JR on pretty much anywhere, but Twitter's where I actually post. Like I haven't posted to Instagram in ages, and it's private anyway. But I'm pretty active on Twitter. Keep talking about coming back to Twitch, doing gaming streams again. So follow me there, and maybe I'll come back. I'm missing it, but I haven't put a date to it yet. I bought the Forbidden Wizard game when it came out, but I haven't started it yet, and I'm wanting to use that as my comeback stream.
I hate Harry Potter, but I bought the game anyway, and I streamed the beginning. It's slow at the very beginning. It's just almost like, come on, when do we really get into it?
Mm-hmm.
But it is actually really fun. And when I was streaming it, I would label my stream like transphobiosa. I never got any hate though. Like other people would have, oh, well, I got these people coming in here. I was waiting for it too. I was wanting it so bad because I was just gonna sit there and talk shit to people the entire
Mm-hmm.
time as I'm playing. I was wanting it, but I never got any hate from it. Maybe because I'm not that big of a name. But yeah.
I saw a little bit in Melanie Mac's chat. Like I watched her for like the first like however 30 minutes because just to get the drops, and I saw a few people jump in. Like it's actually one of the bigger streams that she had in a while. She had like a couple thousand people watching, and there was a few trolls in there. People just, but she was having fun with it. It was fun to watch. She's like, okay, yeah. She named hers her character I'm a bigot. Like first name I'm last name bigot. So yeah, when she did that triggered a few people to come in.
Of course. But yeah. It is a fun game. I will admit that there's a lot to do with the game though.
Mhm.
I get sidetracked incredibly easy because I'll be going on a task and it'd be like, hey, what's this person got to say? Oh, now you got something else for me to do? Let's do that real quick. And that takes me to another area where it's just like, hey, you got this for me to do? And I get lost. I'm just like, what was I doing? I don't remember. Now I'm halfway across the map from where I was supposed to go in the first place. Fuck it. Let's just keep going. But yeah, I'm kind of been stuck on Sons of the Forest here lately. I wish I could stream
Okay.
that, but I would need a different. It's only on PC at this point, but
Mhm.
I would need to hook a different PC for the streaming part because streaming and playing at the same time is very heavy on my single GPU system. So yeah,
I get it. I get it. Also, once a week, I am on Saturday evenings. Typically, I am on Flagrant Triggers channel for our podcast, The Draw.
yeah,
And
that's
that's
actually where I found you guys,
yeah,
and I did sub to y'all, so I'll be catching more of that as well.
yeah. I'm
Um,
up to you now, so I'll be catching what you're putting out there.
Flagrant, I did offer for him to come on, but he had to debate some
Yeah,
idiot.
I saw that.
That's the way he described it to me. He's got to debate some dumbass.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't
But
know.
yeah, I
He's
appreciate.
declared war on he's declared war on these trolls. So he's trying to get them on so he can embarrass them. I don't know.
Look.
I'm gonna talk to him later tonight about how it went.
I'm all for it. I've been literally telling people, like these people do not respond to niceness. Okay, the
Mhm.
nicer you are to them, the more they're just going to see you as a pussy. You have to be mean. You have to be a dick. Especially, okay, women can't do that because the more mean and dickish you become, you just look like Candace Owens on Tim Pool talking about Crowder. You look like the
Yeah.
biggest bitch in the West. But for us guys, we can do that. It's actually expected of us because if we don't act like a dick to people who are trying to attack us, trying to insult us, we just look like big pussies and we get nowhere. So
Yep.
we have to be that. And the fact that look, they only understand what they do. So if they're passively insulting you, they're trying to get a rise out of you. Yes. And then they call you a snowflake. No, the snowflake was you in the first place because you can't handle anything differing viewpoints other than what you want. You try to passively insult to try to play the victim when I come after you. And I call that shit out too. You know. So it's like, oh, well, you're triggered now? No, I'm not triggered. This is a response that you wanted. I'm going to give you that response. You will see when I'm triggered. What this is a fucking warning. Plain and simple. You wanted it, you got it. You have to be a dick to them because that's all they understand. But yeah, I definitely appreciate you coming on and kind of
Yeah.
adding
Thanks for having
some
me.
things for this as well. Don't have anything else in here. Again, tomorrow, 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern, we will be talking with Kat. We're going to get her story out there a little bit further. This will be on the Voice of the People Rumble. It'll be on the YouTube and it'll be on Freely Ashley's YouTube as well. We'll have that conversation going. I have passed the extended offer for her to talk to bigger creators other than me and Ashley as well to pass that information along as well if they want to reach out to her as well. I don't want to give away the number and just kind of be a dick. So yeah, if they reach out to me to get that information, I will tell her, hey, look, this is so and so. Expect a call from this area code. they'd like to talk to you. They're bigger creators than we are. Get your story out there. But yeah, it is about that time. I'll stop sharing my screen here. And do you have any outro you guys normally use, or?
No, we haven't figured one out yet. We normally just do our plugs, where to find us, and no, we haven't really come up with anything yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go by, kind of like how Chrissy Mayer does, because that's kind of how Flagrant and I found each other, and that's what That's how Chrissy Mayer ends all of her podcasts. But yeah, we're both mods in her channel. That's actually another place you can find us. Normally on Sunday nights, we're always modding the chat and on Simcast. So
yeah, I don't think she's, dude. I want you to stick around for a little bit after this, because I don't want to get booted off of YouTube again. Even though the live I did is still up for some reason, but I took a snippet of what I found for the jab and what could be the issue that we've been running into. And I posed the question, I was like, is this the reason for it? The video got 1 view 10 minutes after it was released and immediately flagged for removal.
wow.
So yeah, YouTube's watching me. Smaller creator with like less than my camera's screwed, but smaller creator with less than 500 followers at this point, and they're still watching me. So they're going to be watching everybody out there.
Yeah.
The live is still there, but the video was taken down. But yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll cover that with you here in a bit.
Okay.
But I'll give the outro for this show. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a voice, and it is important. Please sit down. Let's have a conversation. Until then, y'all, have a good night. We'll see y'all again very, very soon.